Some houses are more than just old. They're alive, shifting and watching. Tonight, you'll hear stories of students, families, and strangers who discovered that the walls around them weren't safe. Creaking floors, endless hallways, doors that lead nowhere. Once inside, the house decides if you ever leave. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more scary stories. When Mark and his wife Diane bought their new home, it felt like a dream. A quiet 2-story colonial in a small town, big enough for their 7-year-old daughter Emily to grow up in. The house had good bones, a freshly painted interior, and a long hallway upstairs that connected the bedrooms. It wasn't long before Emily started pointing at the far end of that hallway. "Daddy," she said one evening, tugging at Mark's sleeve. "Why is there a door there?" Mark frowned. The hallway ended in a smooth wall, painted the same beige as the rest of the house. "There's no door, sweetie," he said. "Just a wall." But Emily shook her head, her little brow furrowed. "I see it. It's right there. A white door, with a black handle." Mark looked at Diane, who gave him a nervous laugh. "Kids and their imaginations," she whispered. At first it seemed like one of those childhood quirks, an imaginary friend, a game. But Emily mentioned it again and again. Sometimes, when Mark tucked her into bed, she'd glance down the hall and whisper, "It's open tonight." Weeks passed, and Mark almost forgot about it, until one night. He woke up thirsty around 3 a.m., the house silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Diane was asleep beside him. He crept into the hallway, heading for the bathroom, but he froze halfway down. At the far end of the hall, where there should have been only a flat wall, was a door, white, with a black iron handle. Mark blinked, his stomach dropping. He rubbed his eyes. He couldn't be seeing this, but when he looked again, it was still there. Worse, it was open. Just a crack, spilling absolute blackness into the hallway. And then he heard it, a whisper. "Mark!" The sound slid out from the darkness beyond the door, soft and drawn out, like the voice of someone who had been waiting too long. He stumbled back, heart pounding, and ran to his bedroom. When he shook Diane awake and dragged her into the hallway, the wall was bare again. No door, just smooth paint. "You're pale as a ghost," Diane said, touching his face. "Are you okay?" Mark nodded, though he wasn't sure. "It was there," he whispered. "I swear to God it was there." The next morning, Emily pushed her cereal around in her bowl and said matter-of-factly, "You saw it too, didn't you, Daddy?" Mark dropped his spoon. "What?" "The door. It's open more now. They're waiting." The following nights grew worse. Mark tried to ignore it, but at 3 a.m., he'd always wake to some faint sound, a whisper, a scratch, a creak. He'd open the bedroom door and there it was again, the white door at the end of the hall. Sometimes closed, sometimes wide open, always breathing darkness. The whispers grew more insistent. Sometimes they sounded like Diane, sometimes like Emily, sometimes like voices he didn't recognize at all. "Come closer. Just a step. You belong here." One night, unable to fight the pull, Mark walked down the hallway. He stopped in front of the door, his reflection warped in the black iron handle, stretched and grinning. Inside the crack of darkness, he thought he saw movement, shapes writhing against a void. Then he felt a tug on his hand. Emily stood beside him, her eyes glassy, her face pale. "They want you," she whispered. "Not me." Mark yanked her back, slamming his shoulder into the wall, and just like that, the door was gone. Diane finally admitted something she hadn't told him before. "Ever since we moved in," she whispered, "I've felt wrong here, like we're being watched." She hesitated. The realtor told me the last family left suddenly. She wouldn't say why. Mark's chest tightened. He began researching late into the night. He found nothing about deaths in the house, nothing about hauntings. But in an archived newspaper article, buried online, he found mention of the original builder. A man obsessed with hidden rooms and passages for the in-between. That phrase chilled him. The breaking point came on a stormy night in July. Rain hammered the windows. Thunder shook the walls. At 3 o'clock sharp, Mark woke to silence. No rain, no thunder, just the creak of a door. He turned. Diane was gone from the bed. Panic surged. He sprinted into the hallway, where the white door gaped open wider than ever before. Blackness poured out like smoke, swallowing the ceiling light. And inside that void, Diane's voice. "Mark, help me." He took a step forward before realizing the voice was wrong. Hollow, stretched, mocking. And then behind him, Emily's tiny hand gripped his. "Don't listen," she said. "It's not her." Mark turned, but the thing holding his daughter's hand was not Emily. Its smile stretched too wide. Its eyes were bottomless pits. He screamed and yanked away, stumbling backward, straight into the door's darkness. He woke on the floor of his bedroom, sweat pouring down his face. The house was silent. Diane lay beside him, asleep. Emily was safe in her room. Had it been a dream? Mark wanted to believe that. Ethan had always been the type of man who ran on routine. Wake up, coffee, office, work, come home, repeat. That Friday had been no different, except for how drained he felt when he pulled into his driveway just past sunset. His eyes ached from staring at screens all day, and his head throbbed with the faint beginning of a migraine. He fumbled with his keys at the door, yawning, and pushed it open. The familiar scent of lavender perfume drifted toward him, the one his wife, Marissa, always wore. He smiled faintly. Home. But when he stepped inside, something felt off. Not wrong exactly. Everything looked the same. His couch, slightly tilted after years of use. His shoes in their usual heap by the door. The faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Even the air felt the same warmth he knew by heart. And yet, he lingered by the doorway, brow furrowing. He couldn't put his finger on it. The details seemed too precise, like someone had recreated his home perfectly, but missed something only he would notice. He shook his head, blaming exhaustion. "Marissa?" he called. No answer. He wandered into the kitchen. A glass sat in the sink, lipstick stained in the exact shade she wore. On the counter, the half-finished crossword puzzle he'd been doing the night before. He even saw the dent on the fridge door he'd accidentally made years ago. Everything was identical. Ethan let out a tired laugh. "Losing it," he muttered. Then his gaze fell on the hallway wall. The gallery of family photos. His stomach dropped. Every picture showed him Marissa and their son Tyler. Trips to the park, last year's Christmas, their anniversary dinner. Except, in each frame, the man smiling back at him wasn't Ethan. He looked almost the same. Same brown hair, same broad shoulders, same 5 o'clock shadow. But the details were wrong. His eyes were colder, his smile sharper, his posture stiff. And in the largest frame, The family portrait over the mantel, Ethan's chest tightened. It was the three of them, perfectly posed. Marissa's hand resting gently on his doppelganger's arm. Tyler grinning in his lap. But Ethan wasn't in it. He'd been replaced entirely. The glass in his hand slipped and shattered against the hardwood. From upstairs, a door creaked open. "Marissa?" Ethan called again, voice trembling. He climbed the stairs slowly, heart hammering. At the top, he froze. Tyler's bedroom door was ajar, spilling a warm glow into the hall. He crept closer and pushed it open. Inside, Tyler sat cross-legged on the floor playing with his toy cars. Relief washed over Ethan until Tyler looked up. "Daddy?" the boy said, but his smile faltered. His little brow furrowed. "You're not supposed to be home yet." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. "What do you mean?" Tyler glanced toward the closet. His voice dropped to a whisper. "He said you'd ruin it if you came back too soon." Before Ethan could ask who, the closet door creaked open. Out stepped the man from the photographs. He was identical to Ethan, down to the faint scar on his chin. But there was something wrong with his eyes. Too dark. Too still. The double smiled warmly, as if welcoming an old friend. "You weren't meant to see this yet." Ethan stumbled back. "What the hell is going on?" Marissa appeared in the doorway then. Relief surged in Ethan until she walked straight past him, her eyes fixed on the double. She wrapped her arms around him, kissed him on the cheek. "You're home early," she said. Ethan's stomach twisted. "Marissa, it's me. What are you doing?" "That's not." She turned her head then, her eyes sliding past Ethan like he wasn't even there, like she couldn't see him. "Dinner's almost ready," she said softly, to him. The double smirked at Ethan over her shoulder, his eyes glinting with something ancient and cruel. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He staggered into the hallway, gripping the wall for balance. "Tyler, come here," he begged. "It's me. It's Daddy." But Tyler only stared at the double. "Can we finish playing after dinner?" The double ruffled the boy's hair. "Of course, buddy." Ethan fled. Down the stairs, out the door, into the night. He didn't even grab his keys. His car sat in the driveway, but he didn't dare reach for it. He just ran. Streetlights blurred as his legs carried him block after block. He didn't stop until his chest burned and his vision blurred with tears. He turned down another street, only to freeze. There at the end of the road was his house. Perfectly lit, warm windows glowing. His wife and son visible in the kitchen sitting down to dinner with the man who wasn't him. Ethan's scream caught in his throat. He spun around. Behind him, the same house stood. Same glowing windows. Same warm interior. Everywhere he looked, on every street, his house was there, waiting. He doesn't remember how long he wandered. Hours, maybe days. Time didn't make sense anymore. He'd wake on park benches or against lampposts, only to see the same house at the end of the street. Sometimes, he'd hear laughter echoing from inside. His own voice, speaking with Marissa, playing with Tyler. Sometimes he swore he saw his reflection in the windows, smiling back at him with eyes that weren't his. It's been weeks now. Ethan doesn't know if he's still in his town, or if he's slipped somewhere else entirely. But he writes this down, whenever he can find scraps of paper, hoping someone will read it, hoping someone will believe him. If you ever come home and everything looks perfect, don't trust it. Don't go inside. Because if you do, you'll find out the truth. Your life isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the one who's waiting to take your place. When Evan found the listing for the old house near campus, it almost seemed too good to be true. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living room, and a basement, all for less than half of what the student apartments cost. The ad described it as a little worn down, but full of character. Evan chalked that up to creaky floors and outdated wallpaper. He figured he could handle a little charm if it meant saving money. The first week went by fine. Sure, the floors groaned with every step, and sometimes the bathroom door swung shut, even when no draft was present. A chair once seemed slightly out of place when he returned from class, but he convinced himself he just hadn't remembered where he'd left it. It was an old house. Old houses made noise. Old houses shifted. That's what he kept telling himself. But things changed. The first real moment that unsettled him came late one night. He was studying at the kitchen table when he heard something move upstairs. Not just a creak or a groan, but footsteps. Steady, heavy, deliberate footsteps. He froze, staring at the ceiling, listening. Then silence. Heart pounding, Evan grabbed a knife from the counter and crept upstairs. He checked every room, every closet, even the attic door. Nothing. Just empty, stale air and the faint scent of dust. When he came back down, his kitchen chair was pulled away from the table. After that, the house seemed to come alive in ways that were harder to ignore. Doors no longer just shut. They clicked closed with force, locking him out until he rattled the knob long enough for it to open again. Windows that he swore were closed would be wide open. In the morning, curtains fluttering with the night breeze. One evening, he dropped his keys in the bowl near the door, only to find them sitting neatly in the freezer an hour later. He tried laughing it off. "Haunted house," he joked to his friends over the phone. "Guess I'm living in a horror movie." But when he hung up, he didn't feel like laughing. The night everything changed began like any other. Evan stayed up late, cramming for a midterm. Around 2 a.m., he finally gave in and went to bed. He left the light on in the hallway, as he often did, just to make the creaks and groans less oppressive. At some point, he woke up needing water. The house was silent. Too silent. When he stepped into the hallway, his throat went dry. It wasn't the same hallway. It stretched on far longer than it should have, extending into a darkness his light couldn't reach. The familiar photographs on the wall, his mom smiling at a lake, his brother holding their old dog, were gone. Instead, the wallpaper peeled in strange, wet strips, revealing wood that looked too raw, too red. He turned back toward his room. But his room wasn't there. Just another hallway stretching into the dark. "Okay," Evan whispered. "Dream. It's just a dream." He walked, trying to convince himself that if he kept going, the house would right itself. But the further he walked, the more wrong it became. The floorboards bent under his feet, sagging like something hollow pulsed beneath them. He reached the staircase, only to find it winding upward into nothingness, step after step spiraling endlessly until the shadows consumed them. He tried the kitchen next, desperate for an anchor. But when he pushed the door open, the kitchen was gone. In its place was a room lined with windows, dozens of them, stretching from floor to ceiling. Each one showed a different scene. A cemetery under a blood-red sky, an ocean filled with black waves, an endless desert of pale sand. And in one window, his own reflection. Only it wasn't moving the way he wishes. Panic clawed at his chest. Evan turned and bolted. He didn't care where he was running, as long as it got him out. The hallways twisted, splitting at angles that didn't make sense. Some led him back to where he started. Others ended in brick walls. Once he found himself facing a door that opened into his living room, but when he stepped through, it wasn't his living room anymore. It was empty, stripped bare of furniture, walls throbbing, as if breathing in the dark. And from somewhere deep within the house, he heard it. A sound like someone whispering his name. Not just once, over and over. A chorus of voices, all layered on top of each other, seeping through the walls. Evan. 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 He slammed the door shut and pressed his back to it, chest heaving. Across the room was a mirror, and in it, his reflection was smiling. Not a nervous smile, not a reassuring smile. A wide, unnatural grin that split his face too far. The reflection raised its hand and beckoned. Behind the reflection, the hallway stretched infinitely, lined with doors. One of them was open, just slightly, and inside, he thought he saw his actual bedroom. His actual bed. The real world. His reflection tilted its head, still smiling, still beckoning. The whispers grew louder. Evan doesn't remember how long he stood there, staring. Eventually he ran. He doesn't know if he chose the right door. He doesn't even know if he made it out. Because here's the thing. Every morning since, when he wakes up in his bed, something is just a little different. The hallway is too long. The kitchen window shows a sky that's just a shade too red. Sometimes his reflection lingers in the mirror after he's walked away. And last night, when he locked his front door, he could have sworn he heard someone laughing on the other side.